Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to the Blitz Chess Postmortem. This is a postmortem of my Blitz game number 224. I was black here. My opponent kicked off with d4, and I play knight f6, hoping to get into a Nimzo Indian or a King's Indian or something like that. But my opponent plays an anti-Nimzo system, starting with knight f3. And this can lead into a bunch of different moves, so I could have gone on with my plans of maybe g6 or e6. But there's no guarantee that he's going to play c4. So the most solid move here is probably d5. Looks like e6 and g6 are all playable. Even c5, although that looks a little shaky to me. Okay, but I went with d5. And then he plays bishop f4. So this gives away the intention of my opponent. Now I know he's playing the London system with the bishop outside the pawn chain. And he's probably going to set up this typical pawn triangle here. So I need to come up with a plan to combat this. I could continue with the g6 and c5, which is how I play sometimes. You see, that's not too popular here. Let's see if there's a defect in that. If I play g6, okay, he just goes e3, continuing with this plan. Bishop g7, knight bd2, or c4. h3, c. Those are computer suggestions. Knight c3, knight bd2, h3. Yeah, I guess this is playable too. And if he plays c4 and knight c6, that's a bit odd. Yeah, it looks like that is a move. Let's see. Well, let's go with the book move though. Knight bd2, and if I go c5 here, trying to get my normal setup. Maybe he can hold on to the pawn for a bit. Bishop b5. Yeah, pinning the knight. Okay, so that it looks like it's possible to play that way, and maybe get a little more dynamic position. So I went directly for this e6, and with the idea of putting my bishop on d6 and just trading off that London system bishop, and getting him into a position without the bishops. And you see bishop d6 is a move here. I just wanted to eliminate the possibility of the bishop coming to g5, so I played the move h6 here. And now we're out of the book. And you'll see, based on this, my opening play hasn't been awful. I haven't really equalized yet, but white doesn't have too much of an advantage, so it's okay so far. h3. Maybe not the most aggressive move, and then bishop d6. So now he avoids the trade by playing knight e5. Looks like that was a good choice. And I still want to get a few pieces off. And so I go knight fd7, and he takes. Looks like taking is the top choice. Takes and bishop takes. Okay, so he took, and I took back with the queen, so I could take the bishop with the queen, and now he finally gets rid of this guy. And so we get to this position where white's edge is very minor. I would feel like I feel pretty comfortable in this position. The one thing white has going for him is that he's got a better bishop potentially than mine, but my plan is to open up the center and turn this into a good bishop. And we'll see that going on. So bishop d3, b6, giving some squares for the bishop. Knight d2, and looks like I could have played c5 here immediately, but I go bishop b7, knight f3, so his journey goes over to this side. And now the engine points out this move, queen b4 check. I didn't think about this during the game. It's a fork, right? So I'm attacking the king, and I'm attacking the unprotected pawn. And, well, let's take a brief look at it. The engine shows this as a possibility for several moves starting here. So queen b4 check, and then queen d2 to block, c3 to block. I would think c3 is a little more thematic. Queen takes b2, and castles. So it looks like I picked up a pawn. He's even letting me grab another pawn if it's safe. Is it not safe to grab that pawn? Rook to c1. Oh, I guess he gets a pawn back, and he gets an active rook. So let's take that back. So queen a3, just retreating and getting away home. So looks like I can pick up a pawn that way, although it's not a huge advantage, only 0.2 of a pawn, so it looks like white is either getting the pawn back or he has a lot of compensation. Anyway, I wasn't really thinking in those terms. I didn't consider that move at all. So I played knight d7. I'm just thinking about completing my development, getting my setup going here. He goes queen d2 and rook c8. So I want to get in the move c5. I just want to be able to have some flexibility in how I take back in case he takes the pawn. So he castled, play c5. And you see by now I really have equalized. c3, castles. So I want to get in the move e4 here to continue to try and bust up the center. So he plays a4, going for some counterplay on the queen side. And now the engine does not like my e5 move. It says I should proceed with c4. Yeah, maybe it creates a backwards pawn on b2. That's an idea. Gains a tempo on the bishop. Okay, but I really wanted to bust up the center a bit, so I play here. And now, you know, I have this threat of pawn to e4, forking these two pieces. So the engine prefers to move bishop f5 to avoid that. And then if I take, which is what I was planning, he can take back. And I still really haven't succeeded in opening things up again. I can take again, but we'll just get a very rigid structure. But I did open up this diagonal, at least, for my bishop. So maybe the engine is suggesting rook c7 to unpin the knight, and then the bishop could go to c8 later. So that would be okay. Slight edge for white once again. So after e5, my opponent actually did me a favor by taking on e5. And now I get to open up this diagonal for the bishop, and I get a nice knight here. So until he takes it. But this is once again about equal. And f3, I thought that was a bit strange, creating a weakness here on e6. And so now I can take advantage of that. Put some pressure on the e-pawn and develop a piece at the same time. So he defends. And you see, yeah, it swung from being about even to a slight edge for black here. So rook to c7, I'm planning to triple on this file, get some more pressure. Plays a5, continuing with his plan of weakening the queen side. I triple the rooks. Takes, takes. And then bishop b5. Yeah, I didn't really allow for this move, and this is how white manages to equalize. If you look at this, if it weren't for the bishop b5 move, I would have some slight edge still. But this discomforts my rook. Have to go somewhere else, so that takes some of the pressure off the e file. Although there's still a pin on this rook if one of his defenders disappears. Pin of the pawn against the rook. But right now it's not pinned because this bishop move has eliminated one of my pieces that was putting pressure on the e file. Okay, so but he plays rook a7, and so now because he's removed a defender from the rook, that's what I was getting at. There is some pressure on the e file once again. So I plunge ahead with d4, and yeah, the engine approved of d4. Okay, and so he can avoid problems. What's the best way? Rook e to a1, just getting off the file. And this takes advantage of the fact that the d-pawn is really pinned. My rook on the back rank is undefended too, so I can't do anything. The engine is suggesting g6. Okay, kind of a nothing move. So that would be the way to play it. He played e4, bypassing my pawn. Sometimes that works out, but then that opens up a line for me. Actually, this is one of those funny things. The computer at first thinks c4 is a good move, but if you actually put it on the board, kind of a funny thing with the chess engine, and you show him what happens if white takes this pawn. Queen c5. Yeah, immediately after looking at it and thinking about it, it suddenly drops its evaluation to about even. So c5 was not such a great move. I can pick up a pawn with check here, but I've sacrificed a pawn. And c takes b2. Okay, so I get an extra pawn with that trick. But it's not so great because these are weak pawns over here. It's not like this is going to become a queen. And queen takes. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that. So if you back up here, after the computer has time to think about it, it no longer thinks that c4 is such a great idea and thinks I should play f5. But either one of those moves would be better than what I played. I played queen g5. I didn't actually notice it when I played it that it was under attack from his queen. I was just trying to put up some threats on the g file here and also protect the rooks. So here, this is a mistake, and he should just take my queen. So that's one mistake for me. Definite mistake. See, he can just take. I take back, and then once he got, I mean the material 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Yeah, the material is even, but you know there's this awkward pin on the bishop. He can start taking some pawns here and messing up my structure a bit. It's not too bad, but I do have a couple of isolated pawns. This one is passed though, and bishop c6 or rook d1 probably makes more sense to me. Yeah, what was bishop c6 about? That's a weird move. Bishop c6. Can't I just... Oh, I can't take it. That's taking advantage of the pin. Yeah, so that also makes sense. I've got to defend my bishop. Yeah, so White's better after this. Even though material is even, he's got some pressure and some ways of making my position uncomfortable. So he should have just taken the queen. So instead he played queen f2. So once again about equal after that. And I make, well, I take here, which is okay. Takes back. Then I make a second mistake, which is rook d2. And now this one, this mistake is a little more subtle. I'm attacking his queen, so I think he has to react to it. I was expecting queen f1 to hold on to the g pawn. But what the engine points out is that f4 is a really strong move here. So what it does is it interrupts the defense of the rook by the queen. So the rook is just hanging here. So if I move the queen away, for example, just to escape from that attack, then he's going to take my rook. And I can't move my queen anywhere that defends that rook. So that loses a whole piece. So I have to take his queen, and then he takes my queen. And then my rook is hanging, so I've got to move the rook probably here to attack a pawn. And then he gets to pick up a pawn here. And then bishop c6 going after my pinned bishop again is an idea. Yeah, I guess that's the main point here is he's now got bishop c6. So 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. Yeah, the material is even, but he's got a winning edge here with the move bishop c6. So that was my second mistake. So that was an interesting move. This f5 idea after rook d2 f5. So he could play that. He could play h4 to attack my queen. Looks like the engine does not approve of queen f1. Maybe that's too passive a move here. Well, now I can play f4 and try and bust up the center a bit. Okay, so but what he played was definitely the worst move. So I made two mistakes in a row, but then my opponent makes the final mistake of the game because that is checkmate. So yeah, he had to. That was the idea with the rook. The rook d2 move was to add another attacker to the g2 square. So anyway, the game ended like that. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon. Leave any comments you have in the section below. Bye.